can't find her. From the time I went to sleep to the time I went awake, there's nothing. It's just a void.
My baby girl's life was taken by unscrupulous individuals who may have done this before but will probably do it again.
Because obviously they knew something and they hadn't reported anything.
We're going into a death trap.
It's a cliff on both sides, so we're literally staying.
No one knows exactly where she was, but I mean, they said that they found a rock with blood on it.
The only time you're going to report it is when law enforcement is en route to the body.
There is something about being at someone's last place of life and knowing they were alive one second and dead the next.
And he said, I need to tell you that your daughter didn't make it. She's dead.
There's something about summer on the lake that makes you feel untouchable. Sunburned skin, cold beer, and a little danger in the air. But what happens when the fun stops and someone doesn't come back from the party? Lauren Agee was 21, a college student, a daughter, a fierce little thing with a big smile. She went to Wakefest with friends, a weekend of camping, cliff jumping, and carefree nights. But by Sunday morning, her body was floating in Center Hill Lake. And from that moment on, nothing added up. Welcome to Off the Record on the Air. I'm Sheila Wysocki. With me are investigative reporter Dennis Ferrier, former law enforcement officer Jeff Lucas, and church safety consultant Lori Morrison. Let's talk about the contradictions, the witness behavior, and the gaping holes in the timeline. Because this isn't just about a fall, if there was one, it's about the justice system. I'm going to start with you, Dennis. You and
Sure.
I did a story on Lauren Agee.
Yeah. There's so much to this, right? You just have to start. And one of the things that you said, when you're 21 years old, I don't know about you, I never thought about dying.
No.
When I was 20, it was the last thing I don't care where I was or what I was doing. Did you even consider the fact? No.
No,
You're just
maybe there's stupid things you did and you went, I probably shouldn't do that anymore, but no, I never thought about dying at that age.
Never thought about dying.
That's a little early.
And here this girl dies, and one of the strangest things about it from my perspective is the argument between law enforcement almost immediately about how it was handled on the scene.
Right.
You just don't see that. Everyone gets together. What's our story? What are we going to do? How are we going to investigate this? But those two brave men from White County said, this was not an accident. This was not an accident. And you had DeKalb County swiftly saying this was an accidental death before you even know anything, right? You have these two conflicting opinions, and when you hear the evidence, you can make up your own mind and you see why there was two conflicting opinions.
Well, and that's the key. There were two different counties, White County and DeKalb County. And DeKalb County has more than just Lauren Agee in those waters. I think that tourism makes a difference and they want to keep their image. That's one part of this. Also, they never went to the crime scene. They went up the cliff, took selfies, and then went down. Whereas the two White County officers interviewed people.
I was just starting to get into being a PI at the time you were working on the podcast for this case. And even with as little experience as I had, it seemed pretty obvious to me that there were if there were protocols, they weren't followed. I'd be surprised if they really had protocols for this type of situation. And they were very, very, in my mind, closed off to thinking like Lauren. They were guys, one of them was older, and it was, well, this makes sense to me this way. They did not try to put themselves in her shoes. Would she have done this? Would she have reacted this way? Does this make sense? From her perspective, it just never felt like they made it about her.
They didn't do a victimology profile. So, Jeff, I'm going to turn to you.
Yes.
Tell me what the law enforcement officers should have done and their training, because you and I have spoken about this. I think I almost wrestled you to the ground with your opinion about law enforcement.
Well, because y'all look at it from that side, I look at it from law enforcement. And one of the discussions that we had is obviously the response of the deputies from both counties is questionable. How they secure crime scenes is questionable. Just the whole part. But one of the discussions that we had is that you have to understand, DeKalb County, White County, when's the last time they had a murder? When's the last time they had a suicide? Most people in those departments work multiple areas of law enforcement or wear multiple hats. And so you also have a large, wide crime scene. And my guess is the deputies who responded didn't have enough training to secure both or know how to work both. And usually you don't work across counties on that. It's one or the other. And if that's the case, maybe TBI comes in and takes over. But yeah, there's a lot of things because a lot's expected out of those deputies. But at the same time, you have to look, most counties are underfunded compared to cities. Most counties don't have or send a lot of their patrol officers to certain training. And so they get what they get in the academy and they get their in-service training. And maybe that's all those guys had to go off of. And I'm not taking their side. I'm just giving you another thought that this is something that these deputies have probably never ever seen before and did not know how to react or did not know how to secure both crime scenes. I was involved in the shooting and I had, as a supervisor when I was on duty, and I had to work my own crime scene. I had never done that before. It's off-putting, and so I just don't think maybe we take everything into account.
I agree, but here's
That's
the
context too. I mean, that's just context, which is important because when you're a sheriff, it's an elected position, and your cousin's selling cars, and now you can make him a deputy.
Exactly.
Did he? But where? Okay, and maybe that's fine for traffic, and maybe even for DUI. Maybe he's pretty good at some of it, right? But then when you get into a complicated homicide, suicide, accident, whatever all of a sudden, man, you're over your head.
Exactly.
And here's a thought. Maybe if you've never, ever, ever investigated a homicide, maybe you should say, this scene is a little complex for my level of experience. I'm not saying somebody's dumb or whatever, but just recognize when you're out of your depth and get some support.
So I'm going to say, as a law enforcement officer, wouldn't you look at the crime scene or the body and say it's not consistent with a fall? Her injuries did not look like what they told the family, the 40-foot fall. None of it added up. She didn't have a broken bone. Wouldn't she have had a broken bone? We went up there, Dennis went up there, and we took a dummy and tried to get it to fall off the cliff.
Into the water. We tried to get it from the hammock to the water. Carl Lewis couldn't have done it with a flat rough when he was long jump in 28.2 because anyone who's hiked in Tennessee, there was a goat trail,
right,
like a piggyback hiking trail, and trees all the way up the side. I mean, you could not get anything in the water because how would you? I mean, it was like probably 30 yards out and to get to the water, and you would be rolling, and then you would just get stopped by a tree stump.
You would get
you're
stopped.
On a trail. It was trail,
and it was level. And we tried over and over. And then before you and I did it, I went up there with 120-pound trying to get as close as possible to Lauren's body weight. And we took a dummy up there and tried to do the same thing. So I've done it more than once. Not once could anybody get it to the water. And then from the water, based on all the science that goes along with water, we did every study. I talked to every expert, and there was no way she would have ended up where she was found. How many yards away? Probably, I don't know.
Your bodies don't float against the tide.
So, Jeff?
Well, how many people, let me ask you this. How many deputies responded? How many people
As far as I know, there were 2 deputies. Jeremy Taylor, who's now famous for this. He was, I think, a sheetrocker before this. And the sheriff was in Nashville meeting with the drug judge, didn't hurry home to look at the scene or do anything on the scene. So Jeremy Taylor and Robert, I can't remember, Robert Smith maybe, I'm not sure what his last name, but...
And the two White County guys were off duty. They were working security there. They happened to be White County, but they were. It was in a jurisdictional thing. They were working a side job.
Gotcha.
But they were they had experience, and they were like very meticulous guys who took it really hard.
Because it was Wakefest. Right. There were all kinds of people there that weekend.
A lot of activity. These two officers were so good, and they risked their careers. And one of them was let go because he spoke up. He did the right thing, and politically, the DA said, your career's over. That's not good. I want someone like him showing up at a crime scene. I don't want Jeremy Taylor or someone who was a Home Depot painter the day before. I want someone with some credibility. Jeremy Taylor eventually got homicide training. He was in a class 2 or 3 years later. But it would have been better for Lauren had they sent someone who had crime scene training.
But those were the deputies that were on the scene that responded. Right. So it's one thing to secure that crime scene, and you're talking about Wakefest and all these people around, but the response from the department should have been supervisor over detectives, and the detectives assigned to the case should have responded. You should have EMS out there. But I don't know. I can't Monday morning quarterback too much because I've been involved in similar situations where the story doesn't make sense, but when you sit down and go through it, you can see it from the other side, and it does make sense. So I don't Monday morning quarterback the officers. I just would caution people to go, okay, how long has this guy been out of the academy? If we're going to criticize the officers or deputies, did they have what type of training did they have in crime scene investigation other than the basics at the academy? Because, again, smaller departments don't. You're looking at actually probably should have come under TWRA as well because it was on the lake.
Oh, they were there.
Yeah.
And we spoke to them. We went to the boat. Dennis and I went to the boat and looked because she had an odd shape on her stomach, and we wanted to identify it. So the difference is taxpayers pay for these police officers. Sherry and Mike had to pay for someone to go and find the evidence. I ended up being that person. I had to look at the crime scene photos and go kind of who was trained and who wasn't, because I was trained. And I could see things easily. And then I went through all the witness interviews. I will tell you, if they had done their job, whether you want to say they didn't have enough, it's still their job. They're still taking a paycheck. Show up and do a better job. Jeremy Taylor should have said, this is out of my league. Jeremy Taylor should have gone to the crime scene. In a deposition, he says he did not go. There were 2 crime scenes. He did not go to them. White County Officer Chris Yardchuck showed me the 2 crime scenes. So I went up there. Chris Yardchuck went up there. Why didn't they go to him and say, what did you see? How can you help in this case?
I'm not making excuses.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not. I've just been I've been inside small town politics and small departments, and I know how they work. So you're going to get a guy who's been on patrol, and then he or she takes a test, and they get promoted to detective. There is no training program that you send somebody to for being a detective. It is you are taught by the ones that are there what you should do.
If they're willing to teach you.
If they're willing to teach you. But the thing is what experience do they have? How long have they been in there? What are they teaching this detective? I'm not making excuses. What I'm saying is that these departments that are a lot smaller do not have the resources and the knowledge that they need to do the job correctly. Now, what you're seeing since defund the police is over with and hiring and funding is going on, I've got a page with 6,000 officers on it, and I see all the training that they go to all the time, all the training that is being offered on there. So the lack of training now is not there. It's only the lack of staffing. So if you don't have enough staff, you can't send somebody off for a week or 2 weeks to be trained in something. And that's where these departments fall short, is because you only have so many people to work the road and answer calls. You can't afford to send somebody to a class. Now, your detectives, they should have plenty of times to go to the class. The problem is are they sent? I don't know how much training they got. I'm going to tell you they didn't do a good job, but I'm not going to say who did what wrong because I don't have their notes. I haven't seen what you guys have seen or done what you guys have done. But I'm just saying that to be critical of the response is always outside looking in. People are always critical of the response. But I go back to, well, what do they know? How long has he been out of the academy? How many crime scenes has this guy gone to?
He shouldn't have been there then. Get someone there who knows what they're doing.
But everybody starts somewhere on patrol. That's where you get your experience
someone
from.
Who's
leave them on patrol.
I get it. They do have the ability, and it happens, to call the TBI in.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing about being a small county. You're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you feel like you're over your head, you should recognize it. I don't know what's going on here. I mean, that's a great default. And I'm not saying the TBI is going to do a great job here. I'm just saying that's what happens. That's what happened with Holly Bobo. TBI was called within an hour. That's what's happened. Ray Crouch in Cheatham County, they call the TBI in if they think it's strange. I mean, it's just, that's what you're supposed to do. If you're over your head, you're not supposed to stick your chest out, right? And just say,
you had three agencies there, White County, DeKalb, and TWRA. So the three of them should have, or the district attorney should have called for the TBI.
Yeah.
And for heaven's sake, if you're really that hard up in your jurisdiction that you can't afford by time or by money to go for certain training, read a book. I mean, there's plenty of texts out there because you can just look at some of the paperwork. You know as well as I do, conducting an interview of a suspect is about a lot more than just asking a series of questions. Mm-hmm. You're putting them in a certain order. You're starting over to see if they're consistent. You're doing all kinds of different things. And you just don't see that in these interviews at all. So,
well, let's separate though.
Okay.
Let's separate. It's not the patrol officer's job to determine if somebody's telling you this or that. It's the patrol officer's job to take the statement and to give it to the detectives.
Hold on, he was the detective.
Oh, he was the detective.
Yes.
He was. I want to correct you.
I'm sorry.
And also, though, I want to call it White County was not there as White County. White County was there as
security.
off. Yeah, so there are no authority of the county. They were there as security.
Gotcha.
But it just so happened that they were deputies and with experience.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So that's all I just want to clarify.
Okay, so I'm sorry. I didn't realize that he was the detective. I thought he was responding.
No, he was the detective.
He was kind of both.
I don't know what he was. He's forever attached to this case and not in a good way. And that's very sad. Mm-hmm. What I wonder, and this is the last I'll say about the law enforcement situation there, because it is what it is. And people seem to, what I consider higher by voting for the people in charge. That's their community. They can get whoever they want in there. But they need to look, if that were their daughter, how would they feel? If they did a good job, if this case had gone a different way, they would be heroes. They are not heroes. They have totally covered up. They had the 911 call disappear. Come on.
How did it disappear? What do you mean?
That's a great question. How did it disappear?
Got erased, or what was it said? They got erased somehow by accident.
Yeah.
The EMA center. And it is true. You're as good as your leadership a lot of times. Like Kyle Helton, the former sheriff of Giles County, I always use an example. First thing he did was he went out and hired a retired Chicago homicide detective, coaxed him down to Giles County and said, just come down, for a couple years, train. I'm not, you know what I mean? But that's when you're like, you have enough humility and like, I'm not an expert on this. Let's bring a guy down. Let's give him a lot of room to help our other officers. And it's been, and I was down there for 20 years. It was a spectacular success to have somebody that good in. But you have to be willing to do that. And a lot of men aren't anyway in any area of their life, right? Are willing to say, you know what, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but let's get someone in here who does.
There's a lot of blame to go around in this particular case, though, because there are people with information that just simply won't share it.
Yeah.
And
especially the scoundrels, right?
Well, true. I'll let them off, self-preservation or whatever. But come on. This was a big party scene. This was young people having a good time, socializing. You can't tell me people haven't talked about this. You can't tell me there aren't people out there that aren't the scoundrels, but they've heard the stories and they're not coming forward. That always really bothers me. Now, I understand if you've got a personal connection, you fear for your own safety by coming forward against a certain person. I can understand that.
Yeah.
But people that just say, I don't want to get involved, or that will inconvenience my life if I get caught up in this, no, I have zero pity for them.
If you're catching this cold, there are 3 young men at the center of this that may have had some kind of role in Lauren Agee's disappearance. Where are they now, Sheila? Do you know?
One of them is Chris Stout was one of the people that was with her that weekend, and in his statement he wrote that girl. He didn't even say her name. So, and again, behaviorally, that's something that sticks out to me. But he ended up in jail for a while. Now he has a baby girl, which I find things change when, you have children.
Right.
She giggled when you said that for some reason.
No, I just put my head down like that poor baby girl.
Some people can't carry the weight of, and maybe not. Some people can't carry the weight of guilt all their life. So you never know, you never know.
Well,
you might
and
end up telling the truth in some fashion.
And I'll tell where Hannah Palmer and Aaron Lilly ended up getting married, and they're in Florida. I will say
Immediately went to Florida.
Immediately went to Florida and got married pretty quick. I will say this, and that I always look at the behavior of people after a case because people can't live with it. They start drinking. They start doing drugs. They act differently. And so you have to look at that profile of each person and say, wait, they're acting awful weird. They're getting drunk every night. Are they trying to cope with something? There were several things in this case that stuck out. Chris's behavior was one of them with his excessive drinking. I did go and interview Hannah Palmer at her home in Florida, and I brought another investigator with me from Florida, and Brix Gambrel was there. I almost forgot his name.
And he's the third
man.
And Hannah's a witness?
Hannah was there too.
We were talking. So there are 3 male witnesses and a female witness that were all at the campsite.
Okay.
So and now we've mentioned all 4 briefly.
Right, and they did not report them that Lauren was missing.
Even.
Right, I knew that part, but I just didn't know who she was.
And keep in mind, this is something that stuck out, and I don't care if you're a man or a woman, but nobody put 2 and 2 together that a day before they had to look for 30 minutes because Lauren couldn't find her shoes, and her shoes were there. So that didn't click that there might be a problem. And if she fell, could they have heard a scream or whatever? I think I know what happened. I think I could do a video on what happened. But it makes more sense that they didn't want to notice. They wanted to go about their day. I believe that body should not have been found until everybody had left Wakefest. That's what my belief is. Whether it's true or not, time will tell. But here's the problem with getting all the evidence. You have to go in front of the judiciary system, a judge, and Jonathan Young was the judge. If there is ever a portrayal of him, I would choose somebody who would not listen to a female, would not follow the law. And we know he didn't follow the law because his ruling went in front of the appellate court. The appellate court just slammed him right and left.
And this is a ruling on
Lauren Agee.
the wrongful death lawsuit.
Right.
And that's unusual. Judges don't usually get personal like that. Usually they'll talk about, and they're not technicalities for people that are listening. They are trying to follow, I don't know, the Constitution and state statutes and whatnot. And so they really talk about the legalities of something. That's what appellate courts are for. Did the trial court follow correct procedures in what it introduced, how it introduced it as far as evidence goes? They don't talk about, did this person do the right thing or the wrong thing? And so I always find it very telling in appellate decisions when judges tend to get a little more personal or sound a little bit heated, they're probably a lot more upset than it actually looks on paper for them to actually come across at all upset.
Well, if you were in that courtroom that day, which we were, it had a very you versus us. So, because, there was the hometown feel, and there was all these people from Nashville and Hendersonville, making a big fuss in our court, in our little town, in our county. That's what it felt like. And I'm telling you, it did, because I came in just as a reporter, and animosity, the anger from the bench, the one-sidedness of it, it didn't really feel like an honest hearing.
Did they do CVSA or polygraph on anybody?
Oh,
They did not.
They did not. And I actually have talked to, again, I started calling witnesses, and I talked to the authorities that were in charge of it. They refused. So, and, here's my belief, and I may be wrong, sit for a polygraph. Because if you have a good, and at that point, TBI had a really good polygrapher, but I'm not sure who it is now, but they would have gotten a fair shake. But you're not going to sit for one if you have anything that you're worried about.
And for heaven's sakes, they're not admissible in court. Now, yes, you might get a little more of the attention directed at yourself, and maybe that's what you're trying to deflect. But you completely tank this thing for whatever reason.
Doesn't matter. We've covered cases where they tanked it and it didn't lead to an arrest, of course.
So the fact that you're
but you're right about
you
get a little
unwilling.
extra attention once you fail the polygraph.
Well, sure.
And the other thing is the bite mark. There was a bite mark on Lauren's chest, and Lauren's attorney, who was a Nashville attorney, and you could tell the judge did not like a Nashville attorney coming into his court.
Sorry.
I believe that, I don't know for a fact, but I believe he may have tried to get their teeth impressions, and they fought so hard for it. Isn't that the easiest way to eliminate yourself? Am I wrong?
I would think so.
I'll take a little bit of
a point.
If it were my child, I would tell them, get an attorney and only cooperate in the way the attorney directs you to do. Because you don't know when you may be up against, whether it's a corrupt or inept or untrained or brand new, whatever person.
I couldn't agree with you more. And both FOP attorneys in Nashville, both of them, David Rabin and John Emil, two of the most experienced police attorneys, right? If a police officer shoots somebody in Nashville, one of those guys would be your attorneys. And they have both told me on numerous occasions, I don't care how innocent you are, don't cooperate. I mean, that's David Rabin wrote the criminal code. I mean, John M. Brown is 22-0 on officer-involved shootings. He's never lost a case.
Every attorney I ever worked with or for said the same thing.
Yeah, don't do it. Don't cooperate, because if you get in the crosshairs, it may. And when I was young, I didn't think that. I'd say I'll cooperate, like Adam Brazil did. Here's my car keys. Well,
Well, it's catch-22. You're suspect if you don't cooperate, and then you're suspect if you do.
Isn't that true?
It really is. So that's why you take your attorney's advice.
Isn't it interesting, though, that both FOP attorneys say, I don't care if you're innocent, just shut up, get an attorney.
Now, of course, if I'm a prosecutor, I'm going to argue what you're saying 100% to the extent you're actually allowed to. But if the shoe's on the other foot, I'm saying prove it.
But where is the justice for Lauren Agee? Where is her justice? So,
well, the people that
there is no justice for her.
Anybody that was a part of possibly harming her, they don't care. They'd have come forward by now and said,
But we don't know what
really
it's done to them. We don't know what, when you do an evil act and we don't know how tortured they are. We really don't. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they're ruined. I don't know. But you and I, Sheila, have talked in the past. The truth always comes out. I've never one time.
Always.
The truth always comes out.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, revisit it.
Yeah.
Revisit it because now it's 10 years later, 12 years later.
Who knows who doesn't
Their opinions
care?
have changed.
Right.
and people
Life
are
has
still
changed.
talking about it.
Yeah.
And now people might not be scared. You might not be a 20-year-old kid scared to mess around with this, kind of, there's nothing to fear anymore.
Well, in this particular case, I kind of debate that a little bit because there were threats made.
Right.
And so I do think people are worried. And there have been people that I've spoken to and come forward. But where do you go? You go to an attorney and a judge in DeKalb County. You're not going to get any justice. I was in court the very first time with the Smith family, Sherry Smith. And we left. The second time, I said, he's not a really good judge. And I don't know a lot about judges, but I know fairness. And the second time, I pulled Mike Smith in a room and I said, you need to get out of this case very quickly. He is not going to rule one time in your favor. And he never did.
No.
And after Sherry and Mike decided to move on with their lives because they were not getting a fair trial, a hearing came up and Sherry's name came across regarding Lauren afterwards. So Sherry didn't show up for it. She thought Alex was still her attorney, and I don't know what happened there. But I got a call from an attorney in the courtroom and said, where are they? And I said, they dropped the case. And she goes, well, the judge just said, what does she want now? Referring to Sherry Smith. Is that telling?
Mm.
Yeah.
Also, I want to point out, Jonathan Young is no longer a judge. He got slapped for being inappropriate with females. And when it all came out on his Facebook page, he said, this is a private matter. No, you're in a judicial robe. That's not private. And, people were attacking and it was becoming a big thing. I don't care what you do in your private time. Follow the law, give this girl an opportunity for justice, but by God, have some decor.
Yeah. Judge Young's sanction actually came for something even worse, which is hitting on women in divorce court. So if you're and just imagine the poor man getting divorced and the judge is interested in your ex-wife. I mean, that was that the reprimand, and he wasn't removed. He lost the election because of the bad publicity, but the reprimand was based on really egregious behavior beyond the photos, which are gross. But he was like, "Hey, you want to go out tonight? Well, how are you going to get a fair shake in that court? Because if she and then what does the woman do? She says yes. She's probably going to win her case.
She says no.
She says no. You don't know.
Yeah, you can't
You
win.
don't know. We don't know. You feel like you can't win. Like, we don't know what he would do. Maybe it would be fair. We don't know. But you feel like, wow, what a spot.
Yeah. And can I just say, guys, that does not impress us.
That is so true.
You don't look more attractive to us. You're not an appealing prospect in any way, shape, or form when you're doing this kind of stuff.
I'm sorry, he got dates out of it. I read the reprimand. He did get dates out of it.
Note to self, when I become a judge, do not expose in courtroom.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Manson had followers too. Are those really the people you want to be attracting
But you know
to
what
yourself?
I mean? It worked to a degree. It
But he's
derailed his
married.
career.
He's married. He has daughters.
No, he
But
doesn't.
see, that reminds me that's kind of an out of fear for the people in court, because that reminds me of Casey Moreland.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Oh, well, that's who Patrick Ray was with that weekend.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I find that very interesting. There are several
David Williams
sides.
there too?
Oh
Wasn't that the attorney's name?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But there are several side stories.
I know those guys
Yeah.
really well, so I'm going to stay out of that.
Yeah, I'm just saying, had Lauren's evidence been shown in a fair courtroom, then maybe Sherry could have closure. But we'll never know because the judge was not fair. He was slapped, and I mean slapped by the
Court of the Judiciary.
Right. And, it's just a system that needs to be looked at. Is it corruption? Is it pride? Is it you're above everybody else? What is it?
I called him, to get a comment about his reprimand, and he actually answered the phone. I've never had a judge answer the phone at his office. That's how bad it got.
Wow.
At the end, he's like, "Yeah, hello." I goes, "Judge Young?" He goes, "Yep." I was like stunned. For a minute, I forgot what I was doing, because I was so sure I was going to go through his secretary. And then I think he said something like, it was honest. I don't know. He says, "Well, what do you want him to do to me?"
Wow.
Interesting.
He knows it's coming.
He knew it was coming.
Yeah.
And there was a real defeated tone to his voice.
Not on his social media page.
No,
It's
this
a
was
private.
after all that.
Okay.
This was way after that.
Yeah.
Because remember when all the social media stuff, he hadn't been reprimanded yet. It was just
Okay.
the buzz, and then how you
Oh, and he still thought he could fight it
maybe
and win.
win the public battle, and then the reprimand comes and then you lose the.
Let me ask you this. Have they gone back and looked at it as a cold case? Has anybody done that?
Are you
No,
kidding?
because
It was never a
no.
case.
So, and I'll just say this: it was so vehemently defended as an accidental death. The more the public asked, the more Sheila pushed, the more the media pushed for further investigation, the more they dug in as this was an accident. It's over. So it's not a cold case. It's a closed case. It's an accident. The district attorney, Brian Dunaway, considered an accident. It's closed. It will never be reopened.
Is that what the medical examiner ruled?
That's what
As well?
The medical examiner ruled. I forgot. Was it death by drowning?
Yeah, and she had no water in her lungs. And they
No
said
water in her lungs.
Yeah,
Death
and
by
that's
drowning.
the thing. I mean, if this case could be brought into a courtroom with an honest judge, then let a jury decide. They're very smart people, and collectively they could give the appropriate verdict. But Sherry never got the chance to defend her daughter. So the only narrative out there really is the campers and what happened that night and who benefits from that. They do.
Yeah.
So the true story, I believe I know. I believe Sherry knows because I've given her all the evidence and told her everything. So bottom line is this case can be solved. This case, we did go up. Sherry Smith went with me up to Washington, D.C. We met with her congressman wouldn't meet with her, but my congressman, Mark Green, his office met with us, and he tried to get help in her case. And basically, my perspective is he was told to back off. It's a different administration. It may, take a different turn. Who knows? But it's a shame that John Rose, who's running for governor, didn't help his own person in his district. Would I vote for him? This is where I'm going to get political. If you can't help people in your own area, I'm probably not going to be your vote.
10 years ago, 21-year-old Lauren Agee's life was cut short during what should have been a simple weekend on the lake. Her body was found near a dangerous cliffside campsite, and authorities rushed to call it an accident. But does the evidence tell a darker story? As we mark the 10-year anniversary of Lauren's death, I spoke with her mother, Sherry Smith, and her stepsister, Allison. Their questions have not faded, and neither has the mystery. In the next episode, you'll hear directly from them. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode. A special thank you to Relax Rap for supporting Off the Record on the air. Stop by booth B22 at the Painted Tree in Franklin to buy Relax Rap t-shirts and show your support Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this episode.
R